Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the NFT morning. Super excited to be with you today because it's a special NFT morning. Like every month, it's not only a NFT morning, it's a WAC morning. And today is Monday, the 23rd of December, almost Christmas actually, and almost the last room of the year. And I'm super happy, like every day, to be with my dear friend Rem. Rem, what's up?
Hello, good morning, good morning.
You're ready for Christmas. Awesome.
Yeah,
Super happy to have you there.
Santa
And
is coming.
yeah, that's super exciting. And Diane and Fanny, Diane Drubey, and
Hi.
Hello.
how are
Good
you, Diane?
morning. Good. Super good. A bit chill, but it's all good. Christmas is
Okay.
coming.
Okay, cool. And so Fanny Lacoube also, so all, basically just to remind everybody, all together, you've been empowering museums and institutions, to the digital, I would say, digital art. Yeah, maybe you can reformulate the best way, Diane, what is WAC Lab, because it's always
Sure.
better when you say it.
WAC Lab, WAC, Web3 for the art and culture. So it's all about art and culture and Web3, and mostly cultural institutions.
Awesome. And so, Fanny, I think, today, of course, we will review together news of the space and what happened with cultural institution, but we also have a special guest today, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. Of course, that's when we log in that like my internet just decides to go away and disappear. But no, it's really exciting for the end of year to have someone who was super active in the art and Web3 and institution space. Chris Cumming, the CEO of Iconic Moments.
There
CEO
we
and
are.
founder.
Yeah. Ooh, let me launch some applause. I like when someone is
Hi,
coming.
Chris.
Okay, please, Fanny, go ahead.
I'm loving it. This is great. And yeah, so I mean, I obviously, Chris and Iconic Moment had a lot of things happening all through 2024. So we might not be able to cover everything, but at least we will try. And I think right before we get to Chris, I think Diane and I wanted to mention a few recent events that happened just to let you know about the latest Web3 and institutions happenings. So you both actually, John and Chris, were at Miami this year.
It was awesome.
You might know more than I do, and actually, Chris, you have had an activation during Miami that we will cover a little later during this hour. But there were two interesting events covering Web3 at institutions. There was the LACMA Digital Art Symposium that gathered a lot of collectors, museum professionals, and artists one day during Art Basel Miami Week. That I don't know if you attended, John or Chris, the LACMA Digital Summit.
Yes, I was there, yeah.
So you can report back, like you have more fresher information than I do, actually.
I think Chris, I believe Chris, we met there also, right? Am I right?
I think we met later that evening at Pablo's house, but I was at the other Web3 event speaking that same afternoon. Or
Of
the day.
course.
It's all a blur. I'm not sure we're still not stuck in traffic. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, to be honest, it was really qualitative event. To be honest, it's pretty rare for me to, when you have a lot of panels happening all on the day, you can get bored pretty easily. And at the end of the day, you're here to meet people. So, you spend all the afternoon outside chatting with the people you want to chat with. It's one of the rare events where I basically followed most of the panels that happened during the day.
No, and it's great, and it felt so there were a few things like that. So it was like really obviously organized by LACMA, like Digital Art Council, and by LACMA is a great contemporary art institution. There were also Diminti, which is another Web3 platform, had an event at the ICA Miami for an AI-based immersive sculpture exhibition by Laurie Simons and Peter Wilwright. And I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. So that was like another interesting happening at a leading institution in Miami. Along with many more digital art activations at the main fair. And that's not an institution per se, but this is, it felt, a lot of people gave me the feedback, and I don't know if you had that impression as well, that like I say we, but like digital art was finally, and blockchain-based art was finally welcome in the, like La Cour des Grands, which is the big kid section, I would say. I don't know if you had that impression as well.
Yeah, on my side, I deeply have this feeling that actually, if we talk about they and about we, my overall feeling is that, they need us. And this is what I really felt like, bringing new crowd is super important for the art world. And having a stage for one day, this is what happened in Basel, at Scop, at most of the other fair. They had one morning, afternoon, day dedicated to organizing panels about digital art. And it's as an event organizer, I know how it is. You need to bring new crowds, and you need to bring, to renew the blood of what you're doing. And I really believe that we have really good quality blood for the art world. I don't know what you think about, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think even before going to the digital, you started to see this notion of trying to shake up. I think, who was there? There was a number of new galleries that were at Art Basel for the first time, and I think there is this recognition of, essentially either a parallel class of collectors, but also just trying to say we need new collectors to come in and to feel welcome in that sense. I think we're starting to see higher quality events and programming in regards to digital art, and I would say the acceptance of it. I think the presentation itself, from both a curatorial perspective, but the exhibition has gotten to a much higher quality. No TES polls this year, as far as I'm aware. And even if you were to look at sort of the events surrounding it, from Untitled to Scope, I think you had higher quality presentations of digital art as well compared to the years past. And so I think it's a promising sign. And even if Basel and the fairs themselves are not institutions, right? The two go hand in hand. There's much more institutional acceptance if they believe that the contemporary art world and the traditional art world is beginning to accept digital. It's sort of this like sign of credibility and affirmation of like, oh, we should pay attention. Oh, this is real. I think that you can't really divorce the two. I think they really do have a symbiotic relationship.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm dividing the two more in terms of like market versus like more, like museal acceptation, which we know is always harder. So we started with LACMA and ICA, like, which is a huge deal, pretty much to have. And you're right. Like, I mean, I think the fact that like having more digital art gallery, or like galleries showing digital art, and platforms acting or like having booths at art fairs as another gallery, like, is huge. And this will be how this grows, and not at Art Basel Miami's main fair, right? Like, I mean, we've seen Art Expo at Scope. Untitled had Tender, Kate Vass, and Bitform, and TAEX as well. And so this is where the, like, longer term growth will come. And Art Basel Miami, to go back to the main fair, I think this was interesting also because they had so many digital art activations, like with different partners, right? Like, I mean, there were the Bright Moments had like an immersive AI installation. You had TAEX organized digital art conversations, like over 2 days of panel at the main fair. And then the print project with Iconic Moment that Chris will, well, actually, if you want to tell us about it now, like, might be interesting to know now that we're on the Miami topic, actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think those other activations were a really good sign as well. And it was exciting to see. So, my company, Iconic Moments, partnered with Art Basel to launch an exclusive series for Art Basel Miami Beach 2024. And so the idea here was to do both a in-person series, but also an online series to allow you to essentially commemorate your experience. Festivals, fairs, events, museum exhibitions have a long history of doing posters and prints to commemorate those events. I have a great collection of posters around museum exhibitions. I'm also from New Orleans, so the Jazz Fest poster is a huge deal here with a 50-year history that people literally look forward to every year to collect. And like, who's this year's artist? What is this year's artwork? And so we launched essentially this series with Art Basel, where we collaborated with Tyler Hobbs on his new generative series, 64 Bits of Sunlight. It's an incredibly beautiful collection. And so there were two different, essentially, releases that we did here. One was a exclusive poster. And so the poster itself, one artwork from the algorithm was selected. And, we were excited that this was offered across all 3 shops at Art Basel and online. We really focused on making this accessible. So the price point was only like $150. And we included a NFC chip on every poster, so you could actually register your poster itself to be able to both have the provenance of it, but also other things that might come in the future. And then we also offered a limited edition series. And so this was 400 unique outputs from the algorithm. So 400 one-of-ones from Tyler that came with a certificate of authenticity that was also NFC linked. And, we were excited to see it was a huge hit. The limited edition series sold out in less than, I think, 2 hours in the public offering. We had purchases from over 28 countries from around the world. And it was exciting when someone walked in the door, the first thing they saw at Art Basel was the shop, and you saw Tyler's artwork there on the wall. So for us, this was a really important way to, I think, introduce, one of the most important artists of our age to a lot of traditional collectors on a really beautiful collection.
And so you said that, like, the public offering, you had NFC chip, and it was linked to, how did you differentiate, like, then, like, was it linked to an NFT, but that was different from, like, the 400, like, one-on-one, like, or what was behind the public offering?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the 400 one-of-ones, the NFC chip is linked to each individual poster, or each individual print, I mean. We fundamentally believe here at Iconic that blockchain for certificates of authenticity makes so much more sense than the physical COAs, and is a much better system for authentication and provenance. And then for the essentially the public offering, or the poster itself, obviously the artwork is the same, but you still are uniquely registering your print with your information. to be able to both authenticate that this is an official Art Basel poster, but also to potentially have different experiences down the road.
Super. And you know, it's interesting because you mentioned, I mean, obviously we've all seen like everybody coming out of a museum show with a poster, right? Like, but I'm wondering, is it the first time that Art Basel was doing a poster for an art fair, or is it also something and I've never seen it and somehow totally missed it? I'm just wondering, I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, if you look at like other art fairs, they also have a long history of posters from Venice to a whole bunch of others. There have been posters in the past. They were several years ago, but this is the first time in a while to essentially have sort of this like exclusive series, particularly with I think one of the most important digital artists of our day.
Yeah, no, this is very exciting. I mean, I'm very happy this is happening, and hopefully. So, what's your read actually like? Having, I mean, from what you can tell us, like seeing from the inside, like the interest from this like iconic fair into like digital art and all these different activations. Like, do you think they're kind of shopping around, like, or kind of like experimenting to like develop? I mean, we've seen them experiment before. If we stay with Art Basel Miami, like with ArtQL, for example, that's platform blockchain. I mean, it was a private blockchain-based platform to help galleries with blockchain-based certificate of authenticities and the financial transactions, which they still have, right? Like, I mean, this is still there was a change of management, but and now like kind of going around with more partners. Like, what's your read on that for next year?
Yeah, so I can't really speak on Art Basel's behalf or go into too many details. I'll say that I think they're a really smart and great organization that is continually keeps their finger on the pulse, and you know, from the galleries to the programming to activations, I think that they are very aware of where the world is, and they have a really good team behind them. I'll say they're one of the most professional teams we've ever worked with, and so it's been fun to partner. But I unfortunately can't say more than that.
Yeah, of course, but I just had to ask. I mean, this is like I'm curious.
Yeah, and, no, you're good. I unfortunately have to use my old lawyer language of I can't really talk about it. I'm sorry.
No, of course. But you know, just to realize for people, I think for you, but for everybody, it's a huge milestone. You know, being, you know, I think, you know, we should represent ourselves. What is a shop? Okay, not only for museum, but any kind of institution like Art Basel. It's kind of the place everybody is going through, because, you know, it's part of the business model of the fair, of course, of sale. And having this, you know, as kind of it's basically the first product, or the simple product you can buy in the shop. It's a huge move. I just wanted to know, you know, but how started, you know, what was what is the hiding behind when Art Basel, you're reaching out with them, and, you know, maybe it could be interesting to talk also about your journey that bring you to this moment, because it's super interesting also. But you know, basically, what is in terms of strategy, of course, you know, Tyler Hobbs is one of the best artists of his generation, basically. So it's a big move. But what is the move behind, and how does it work, you know, to be kind of the poster of the exhibition?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's exciting, right, is that Art Basel itself is an event that people look forward to every year. I mean, there are people that will travel around the world every year to come to this fair, and they look forward to it every year. And they'll go, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ago. And you build these relationships with people that sometimes you only see at the fair once a year, but you go, it's good to see you again, you know, from that last time. And so I think that that's, to begin with, why we really believe that there was a good thesis and good precedent behind, arguably the most important event in the art world, having a way to commemorate that experience, right? And starting that. Like, we believe in this idea as a whole. I think at Iconic, we've always done things a little bit different from a lot of individuals in Web3. With our releases, we are a big believer in having physical components to them, with limited edition prints and offerings, and the idea of linking physical and digital together. I hate the word digital, but like the concept behind it is to us really, really interesting, as are digital COAs and reward ecosystems, the things that you can do that really, intuitively use blockchain technology at its best. And I think we're also thinking about, particularly because of our background in cultural institutions, what is the easiest way to introduce someone to blockchain technology, right? If someone's walking into a cultural institution, they could be from any background in the world, right? They could be someone that came to see great art and they don't really use technology that often. But I think by paying attention to cultural institutions, we pay attention to contextualization, and also from how we design our technology, having really, really simple UI UX intentionally to introduce someone to this. And so through our past releases, we started talking with Art Basel, I think close to 2 years ago. So this has been a long conversation, with the organization on different ways and different ideas that we might have. And so very similar, I think, to a cultural institution, there was this question of, if someone walks in the door to come to the fair, right, and they know nothing about blockchain technology, they know nothing about digital art, what is the experience that we can offer to them that is a compelling experience, right? There's both the artwork, like you can see it and you go, that's beautiful, right? And you may not know it was from a generative artist or that was digital, right? But you immediately can connect with the artwork. It could be you want to commemorate your trip, and then we have all the components to it of, okay, great, how can we digitally do things with this through either the NFC chip, but also the online portal, right? If you weren't able to come to Basel, right, there were 28 countries worth of people that still now own a piece of kind of Art Basel history from 2024. And so it's a way of driving global engagement and global experience, even if you can't physically come to the fair. And that's very similar to our thoughts on museums, museums are typically so focused on bringing you in the door of the museum that they do a really poor job at engaging people all around the world online who are aware of that museum. And so those are some of the thoughts that were there.
No, and I think this goes back to John, what you were saying with like, I think you said fresh blood and it's fresh meat, right? Like we're trying to engage more like out of the wall of the museum, like online and with new exciting ways, but also that are accessible, right? Like that do not require any like previous knowledge. And I like that we're doing the interview kind of reversed from like your latest activation back to now. Like I think that's maybe a good moment to introduce you and Iconic Moments, because you're actually one of the long-time WAC member and mentor. You've actually participated and as a participant, a guest, a speaker, and a mentor to many of the institutions we've worked with Diane over the last 3 years, and like I think before even talking about Iconic Moments, like I'm wondering maybe if you can tell us a bit more like about your personal background and how you ended up founding Iconic Moments, because what I personally really enjoy in this space is the fact that we all come from like very different backgrounds, having had like not 7 lives, but maybe like 2 other entire careers before, and that like you really bring into the space. And so yeah, wondering if you can tell us more.
Of course, and thank you, Fanny. Sorry for jumping around a little bit. So My name is Chris Cummings. I founded Iconic Moments. It'll be 10 years. It'll actually be 10 years old next year, believe it or not. And so my background is always kind of sitting at that intersection of, I would say, culture and technology. So I've been building startup companies now for over 15 years. So that's everything from a lot of work within EdTech and working within startups and technology companies powering e-learning solutions for some of the world's biggest Fortune 500 companies and Fortune 50 companies. I took a break from doing that to go become a federal constitutional attorney for a number of years in terms of the amount of hopping that we do, and went really heavy into federal criminal law until I burnt out. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do right now, but I know I want to do something else. And so I got picked up to run a venture capital fund for a year and realized I still had that itch to go back into to build. And so I actually got started building technology for storytelling around families. Believe it or not, my mom unfortunately had gotten sick. She had MS and early onset dementia. And I wanted to build this digital solution to help record and pass down family stories. And as I was building that company, all of a sudden I had all these institutions start reaching out. We had big companies like Porsche and Coca-Cola. We had museums and we had libraries go, well, I know you're doing this for family storytelling, but we have our own stories to tell. Could we license your technology? And so I kind of just got pulled into the world of culture and the arts, by happenstance. And I was just shocked by how antiquated the technology was. Just completely antiquated. There wasn't a lot of platform solutions. There was a lot of technology being built on a one-on-one basis that was built improperly. And so we saw this opportunity to try to really improve the quality of technology within culture and the arts. And so we started by building a digital exhibition design platform. You might think of this as like a Canva or Squarespace, but for museums that would allow you to create online and touchscreen exhibits. And so that we, built and powered that to this day for, institutions all around the world. But we really started to look at Web3 and blockchain technology and the idea of iconic moments when COVID hit, and we saw 94% of museums around the world close at the same time. And we saw just the huge impact that museums had. And a lot of the best people we knew within museums were getting laid off. And we knew that the world for museums had changed wildly.
And at that point, like what pushed you to really go further into like the blockchain side of things? Like, it was sort of linked to the bull market in 2021, or like at least in terms of timing. But I'm wondering, like, because you could have picked any other, technology.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a good friend that was a CTO of a company that had just gone public, who called me for 3 months saying, you should do this for museums of blockchain. And I kept saying, no, this is probably, I think, early 2020, something like that. And maybe fall 2019, early 2020. And so we actually spent 6 months talking to museums before deciding to do this, saying like, what are your thoughts around blockchain technology? What are your thoughts around its application to everything from the store to ticketing to engagement and membership? And we ultimately came to the conclusion, right, that the overall support mechanism for museums anywhere in the world was failing because it was so built on in-person experience, right? Museums' day-to-day activities, their marketing was all focused on, can we get you to walk through that door? And in a world of COVID, right, that literally, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we became fascinated by this idea of like, what is the single best way to help drive global engagement and digital engagement for museums, right? And how can we build a relationship with someone that may never come to your museum, but you can engage them and build that relationship and you can educate them. And, NFTs were obviously a component to that, but not just through sort of the transactional side, but also thinking of through the storytelling side and the educational side and what was possible for conservation efforts as well. And, but when we kept seeing the ways that people are trying to do NFT implementations or blockchain implementations, it felt like it was designed by people that didn't understand museums or their values. And so we really wanted to build a solution from the ground up with cultural institutions in mind.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's you worked with a number of different institutions. I'm wondering, what was the first one you worked with?
You know, I think we, in total, we've probably talked to, not exaggerating, like 200 plus institutions at this point. I think the first institution that we publicly announced was either the Universal Hip Hop Museum being built in the Bronx in New York that will open in 2025, or it was the Jackson Pollock studio in the corner of East Hampton where Pollock painted all of his masterworks. The time's a little bit blurry there, but I think
it doesn't matter. But it's and then the most recent one, if we take like the other end of the spectrum, if I'm not mistaken, was the Kansas Museum of Art plus Light.
Yes.
That hasn't opened yet, or like that is going to open, or
oh
that
no,
just
it's
opened?
it officially opened in early November. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's kind of like a dream partnership and project.
Because and if we stay on this one for a little bit, like what's it's very interesting to me, because this is we talk a lot about the engagement of audiences outside of the wall, like how to augment like exhibitions and but there's also, like, you pushed it even further for this one, because you actually partnered and designed online programming for that museum before it actually opened its physical location. So kind of like I don't even know what the verb would be, like, but like pre-augmenting or like preset, whatever word that is, but allowing them to pre-launch pretty much like their physical location with a digital one. And maybe if you can tell us more about this partnership, that's I think would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, in Web3, people always think things happen immediately or very quickly, when in the world of museums it takes years, right? And I think it's a good thing, right? Because the quality of the work is built over a lot of thought and time put into a particular project. So, we started chatting with the Museum of Art and Light 20 plus months ago, maybe a little bit longer. And so I'm a huge fan of museums like the Museum of Art and Light, which are located in locations that are not major metropolitans. And the reason why is, if you are lucky enough to live in a New York or an LA or a London, or take some big city around the world, you are surrounded by museums, right? You could just throw a rock with your eyes closed and you would hit a museum. But if you're anywhere else, right, your exposure and access to art as a whole and culture, you have much less access, right? And so you have the ability to really become incredibly important for creating that access for your region, but you also become a pull to draw people to travel to have that opportunity, that experience. And so when we met with the Museum of Art and Light, it was an incredible team behind the museum. And the thing that we were excited about is that we had this idea of, what if you could really build the first museum in the world that would have an entire wing permanently dedicated to the collection and exhibition of digital art? Because that hadn't happened yet, right? The problem we've seen in the museum world has been, museums say we're engaging in digital art, but it's a pop-up exhibition that's 3 days, or that exhibition is not actually in the museum. It's at like an affiliated museum thing. And
it's next to the bathroom,
Yeah. And so I think that digital art has been fighting, right, to be recognized and treated the same as traditional art or contemporary art. And largely it hasn't been in museums. And this really, from a respect of the medium and a commitment to showcasing the medium, was a museum that had the right mission behind it and the right care. So we partnered to essentially, the museum is amazing. The first floor, which you'll see here, includes 32,000 square feet, which with one of the top immersive experiences in the entire country. So like, this incredible projection experience, mapped experience, The second floor is the digital art wing, and the third floor is the contemporary wing. And so someone has the ability to experience all of that in one visit to the museum. But Fanny, to get to your point, we help the museum partner on the exhibition design, on the curatorial, and we also are a big believer in building awareness of a museum leading to its opening. And so before the museum opened, all 5 artists that were on exhibition, which is everyone from the amazing poet Sasha Stiles to Emily Shee on the generative side, to Grant Yoon, to Eric Calderon or Snowfro, to Tyler Hobbs. We did a storytelling campaign each month around each artist, as well as a auction or a charity-based component to help fund essentially the creation of the museum and its activities. And I think we generated 4 or 5 million impressions for the museum before it even opened its doors. Can you hear me, Fanny?
Yeah, I can. I think it's on my side. I'm sorry.
All good.
I think I'm back. But yeah. I mean, I was following. So like,
okay. Yeah. So, but I mean, the museum is now officially open. One thing we're really proud of is that when you walk through the doors into the exhibition itself, you're greeted with essentially a lot of contextualization that we haven't seen in other museums. There's entire areas that describe what is the blockchain, what is an NFT, what does Web3 mean, what does generative art mean. And so this initial exhibition is called Decoded, and the idea is that we wanted to introduce people to the different facets of digital art, right? Because for us, we all know like, oh, this is all the different types of digital art. But again, if you've never heard of digital art, you don't know what it means. That could be algorithmic art, could be AI-based art, could be video, glitch, could be neo-precisionism like Grant, it could be like Sasha's work with AI and poetry. And so I think it was an opportunity to really show the diversity that exists within digital art, within the realm of the museum.
Sorry, I'm like, I hope you can still hear me. It's gonna take a few minutes to come back, but
Hey, John, I think you're on mute, but I can see you.
Yeah, thank you. I will take over from now. The time Fanny is coming back. This museum looks, I think, yeah, okay. When we see the website and we see everything everything that's happening there, the scenography, the 3 floors, the artist selection, and the smart way of mixing basically everything we saw from previous immersive shows, from, I don't know, Van Gogh or Renoir, or like, I would say traditional immersive shows, but, the usual suspect of immersive shows, I would say, and that are basically attracting people because you need this, you need these names. Of course, for us, Sasha Stiles, Snowfro, and Tyler Hobbs are legendary artists. But for most of the people in the world, they don't know who they are. So I think it's a very smart way, to integrate both of them in the same area so you can attract people, with basically key impressionists or whatever artists, and then letting them discover also digital art, right?
Absolutely. And I think that there's a the world is evolving and changing around museums, and a lot of museums are not they're not keeping up or realizing the change, right? For tourism for museums since COVID is way down. Unless you're a top 20 museum, your tourism numbers and attendance numbers are way down. And museums are losing people to experiences that they don't necessarily view as something they should worry about, because they go, oh, they're not a museum. And I think to some degree, there's some dismissiveness that it takes place. But if you've got a family and you've got kids, families today might choose to go to a Meow Wolf experience or a secret cinema experience. They might choose sort of one of these like pop-up immersive experiences over going to a museum today. And so I think the future of a lot of museums is continuing to do what a museum's mission is, but also not being afraid to integrate new forms of art, new forms of technology into the museum experience as a whole. And I think that the museum here has built the technology on the first floor as an example so that we can bring in amazing digital artists to take over that space and to quickly be able to play with a new medium, which is projection.
No, yeah, that's super interesting, and we just need to follow figures. Actually, it's not only for museums, but even since COVID, theaters. I think all the traditional, I would say, culture and entertainment, activities that family could do together are, the ones basically who are not changing are declining in a way, and because now you need to talk to this new generation, because they are even decision maker within families. So you need them.
Oh, you have to, and it's unfortunate. The reality is, in the next 10 years, we're going to lose a lot of museums. There's going to be a lot of museums that permanently close because they haven't figured out how to continue to either have people walk through the door, or they haven't figured out ways to evolve and to do things online. And so every time we imagine that, that's just this huge loss of culture, right? And you ask, like, well, where is that museum's permanent collection going to go? Is it going to end up moving from a permanent collection to the public into a private collection in a yacht or a vault that no one's going to see again? And that's a loss. It's to us like a loss that we're trying to fight against and to push back against.
That's super interesting. And so you mentioned that the museum, even me, sorry, I didn't realize it's already open, right?
It is,
Wow.
yeah. So the museum officially opened the first, I think it was like November 8th to the public. And it's been amazing. I mean, one of the things that we're really proud of are, beyond sort of the contextualization, is ways that we can make the museum participatory. There's a great book in museums written by Nina Simon called The Participatory Museum, that we should make museums not just you come in, you view art, you leave, but that everyone has their own perspective, everyone has their own story, and you should have a way for them to engage. So for example, in Tyler Hobbs's exhibition, which is showcasing QQL, we actually have a station where anyone can walk up and play with the algorithm and see it created live. And so not only are we introducing visitors to being able to participate in digital and to play with an algorithm and to see it, right? But everyone then observes that person creating artwork. And so we entirely believe, right, we're creating an entire new generation of kids that now realize they can become artists. They can become artists through digital and can become artists through coding. We also have another station set up at the museum where essentially it allows people to play with different physical aspects of the artwork and combine it themselves. And so the whole point, again, is to allow someone to have like a hands-on experience and to change their experience of realizing that they can engage as well, and this might be a pathway for them. And the last thing I'll say here on QQL is that we also brought in multiple QQL pieces that were created by the community themselves. And so it's not just Tyler's work, but it's also the community itself. And I think that challenges the notion of community participation within a museum, which is important, and that the community themselves can have a larger role within a museum setting.
But I think it's very interesting what you're talking about, because I feel like, projection, but also, interaction, gamification, playing, basically, playing with community and with people. It's a lot of ingredients that are kind of a new requirements for catching these new people. And I feel like actually for people who are in the Web3 space, we've been living this it's kind of, I feel like the last 3-4 years, a lot of artists have been experimenting, trying things, mixing also experiences that are going beyond traditional art, but not only visually, also in the mechanism, in the interaction. And I feel like, a lot of drafts have been created that now need to be used, in the real world, adapted for normal people. You have this feeling?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think I think there has been like amazing technology and ideas that have been created, over the last several years. And so what's interesting is beginning to see, well, how do you implement those? I'll give Diane credit here at WAC, right, for being one of the most important people for guiding new technology creation in the world of museums and the ideas of where that is. And so I think that there's been a lot of technology built where it's just now beginning to be implemented. And that's the most exciting part, right? It's like, what does that implementation look like? And how can that implementation improve or change the museum experience? And to some degree, right, like nothing is new. When we talk about proof of attendance and POAPs, it's this concept of like wanting to, again, commemorate your experience of being there, right? Which is not too dissimilar from Foursquare or a bunch of other technology companies that have come before, right? It's just an evolution of like, we want to do these things. So what's the best way to do that with the technology of today? And so, yeah, I think that's particularly for museums, they're like the perfect test bed to do this.
No, yeah, but it's, and it's not something to underestimate, because it's very hard, to upgrade any experience.
Yes.
Because then the question is how to scale up also.
Yeah, and I think, again, the other thing that that makes museums more challenging for technology implementation than other areas or other verticals is that you have a much wider range of users from a demographic perspective, right? Like if I'm building an app for a sports team or sports league, it's a much more focused, concentrated UI UX around a particular demographic, right? But with museums, you have to serve kids all the way up to my grandparents if they were still here, right? And you have to build the technology to reach all of those users and to focus on what accessibility truly means. Accessibility and technology awareness and savviness, accessibility from language. And so I think if you can get museums right, it'll work for anyone else, is what I would say.
Awesome. And Diane is back with us. Yeah, Diane, please.
Yeah, just wanted to add something on what you just said, Chris. I had this beautiful discussion with a team from the MOA, the Museum of Art and Light, and I've really, really loved the low-tech approach, the really hands-on approach to generative art and to blockchain in general. Like, I really loved. So they explained me the different interactive stations. I loved the fact that they wanted to explain how Sasha Stein's AI powered generative poetry was actually built by using magnetic words. So you can generate poetry by yourself. They were talking about these magnetic tables to build a composition. I love it. It's low tech, it's simple. You have to take your hands and move things around to understand how generative art can work and how blockchain can work. That's genius, really. And I want to see that more in more museums, because we kept having the same issue of how we talk about technology, how we talk about blockchain, and these really, really hard words to understand for everyone, not only kids, but doing it with your hands and playing with it and seeing what is generative, what is the generative system, how it is working, how do you compose. It's really genius. I love it. So congrats on this one, really.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, well, I'll just give a huge shout out to the museum as a whole. I think that it takes the right museum, really want to learn and to care to do this the right way. And, actually on that note, I'll share a photo really quick. So let me find the window here. Okay, can you see my screen?
We can.
Yeah, so this is an example of someone being able to walk up and digitally to use the QQL algorithm, and then immediately on multiple screens around the station to be able to see that artwork created live. I mean, this has been such a huge hit where, I mean, you've got, sometimes you kind of worry is like someone's staying on the screen too long to give other people a chance to participate and to engage. And then on the hands-on part, I'll just show this really fast.
Sure. And
I'll actually show a photo of Tyler playing with Emily's style here.
Wow, that's exciting. And yeah, I had a last question also in the same time, but let's see also this first.
But for every artist, you actually have stations set up that takes their artwork or their art medium and breaks it down into a physical activity for anyone to be able to participate or interact with.
I love it. I want to do it. So good, really.
And so I think it's poking at how we talk about digital art, how we allow someone to learn about digital art, how they can interact with it, and showing how these pieces all come together.
It's amazing.
So yeah, I'm just curious about next year, because we are really close to Christmas now. What's the news for next year? You talked about the hip hop museum, I think, briefly.
So no, I was saying I think our first activation was either with the Hip Hop Museum or the Pollock studio. But I mean, this is also an example of how. One second, I think Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, all good. You're back.
Yes, you're here.
Okay. Yeah, so this is an example of how long it can take for museums. We did our project with the Hip Hop Museum 2 years ago, and it'll open next year, right? And so we did something well ahead of time. But to answer your question, we're excited. We have a ton of new activations and experiences coming for the Museum of Art and Light in Kansas. We have other institutional partnerships and releases to announce, and so we'll be staying busy. But as always, our goals are the same, which is introducing people to museums they may or may not have ever heard of, and building those relationships with global audiences to learn about the museum, to learn about the artists and the artwork, and to do good things together.
And may I ask if these similar posters will be available next year in Paris, maybe for Art Basel, or was it just a one-off?
I am not able to talk more about it.
Okay.
No, don't talk about it. If you would
we don't ask.
If you would like to do it, which kind of artist you would select?
Yeah, I think in general, when artist selection is always one of the most interesting things, right? You could take into consider geographical, you could take into consideration a whole bunch of other factors. And so we felt like, for Miami Beach, particularly when we saw the algorithm in 64 bits of sunlight, it lended itself so well into Miami. It had colors that felt like Miami. We thought it was the right artist to start there. And so I think artist selection is one of the most fun parts of the job or our work. So I'll kind of leave it there.
Awesome. And we have so many things to talk about, but time is running actually. But last thing for me that is important is just about, and maybe it's related also to the museum in Kansas City, Art and Light Museum.
Museum of Art and Light, MOAL.
Exactly. Just maybe you mentioned it quickly, but are you trying to provide also some minting experiences, or kind of you mentioned POAP, or I don't know, is there like is it related always to buying a paper stuff and working with this?
Both, yeah. So, we've powered unique minting experiences already for the museum through multiple releases, with the museum. But we're also, I think, exploring POAPs at the museum as well, which I think is really interesting. Of how do you document or commemorate your experience through a museum? we are looking at the immersive floor with this idea of what does it mean to give amazing digital artists this tool brush to take over 2008, and making sure the technology is easy to be able to bring them in, almost in like a residency type way of being able to do a takeover. And that's going to be some of the most fun we have next year. I hope we don't give, so there's a lot of things that I think are, you can look at blockchain technology and say, how can it improve the museum, right? And if that's the goal, how do we improve the museum overall? Then that's where, I think this implementation of a lot of the technology and the infrastructure behind Web3 is now being put into place.
This is awesome. No, thank you very much, Chris. If you want to stay with us for 5 more minutes, maybe Diane, you can continue, because it was actually, we changed.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. So, if you want to comment or anything that Diane is talking about, also, feel free to interrupt us. But so maybe Diane also, we started with some news and we started with Miami, but there are a few other things that happened basically the last few weeks. Maybe there are some things you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, mostly one, because we don't have much time. But there is one show that I really appreciate, which is Material Poetry, which is actually a virtual show on the Common Garden platform. Common Garden is this virtual show platform that everyone can use, that is actually made by Constance Dullart, this net arts and digital arts artist, quite famous, and he has been experimenting with a way to meet, to meet and gather people in a virtual space and create this type of sense of togetherness. And so Material Poetry is one of the shows that can be built, that have been built on Common Garden. It is presented by HEC, House of Electronic Arts in Basel in Switzerland, and it has been curated by Giorgio Vitale from the Synthesis Gallery. It is small show. It actually presents only 5 artists and artworks, but it's really rich in terms of how diverse we can talk about poetry, and we can really showcase poetry on a really 2D virtual space. So it is really showing how, poetry can become something else in the digital age. The show Material Poetry is all about the topics of intimacy, identity, and the self. It is not just showing text, far from it. It is actually showing, paper-based sculptures, such as what Ana Maria Caballero did. She basically used the responses of different audiences in different cities, and then created these beautiful architectures from them. We have Eduardo Cac, for instance, who is showing immersive VR poem, really bending language into a 3D experience. We have Franziska Ostermann. She's actually staging different variation of herself in Zoom calls, asking, "Can you hear me?" And it's all about the self-dialogue and the limit of digital connection. We have Sasha Stiles showing a beautiful AI collaboration around authorship and identity. And we also have Danielle Brathwaite-Shirley. They are showing, text-based game, which is talking about memory and marginalized narratives. So it is 5 artists totally tackling the topic of poetry and the medium of poetry in really different ways. It is really showing how poetry today is really becoming a living and constantly evolving medium that can be bended in so many different ways and transformed thanks to the digital age. So I'm just really inviting you, check it before it's closed, because even if it's online, it's actually live only for 2 months, I think. It's a beautiful show, so have a look. And the entire show has been actually designed by another artist, so it's actually 6 artists behind it. But yeah, it's a beautiful experience, really.
Yeah, it looks super exciting. Super exciting, and super happy to. Yeah, I can't wait. I think this is exactly what I'm gonna do just when we end the show, just visiting this exhibition. And I like this idea also of a pop-up exhibition online. So something that you can see only for a moment, because creating.
They are actually doing it every 2 months. It's virtual.ec.ch. Every 2 months you have something new on this link, always on Common Garden, and it's very different always. So I invite you to check. Your mic is strange, John. Is it only me, Chris, or?
No, it's I heard the same thing.
Maybe mute and come back or something.
Is it better now?
You're back.
Okay, no, I just
sounded
closed.
like you had the Daft Punk for a moment.
Yeah, no, actually, I closed the HEC page because I had too many sound, I believe, coming from different videos, so I just closed them. I just wanted to thank you, Diane, because I think we have much more things to cover, but we will talk about it in January for the next WAC Morning, and I'm pretty sure, a lot of new things will pop up. We can see actually that there are always things happening in the space, and this is why we cannot cover everything every month. And just for people following the NFT Morning every day, tomorrow is the 25th of December, because it's a pre-recorded episode actually, and the 24th of December, and we will have something happening also. Just follow us on Twitter and you will see what is the episode about. Chris, thank you so much. Can't wait to see what's going next. Congrats again. I'm just, after what I saw, so I know that my next trip to the US, I will need to have a stop in Kansas City. So I don't know how to do it, but I will do it for sure. It's super exciting. And
no, thank you so much, John. It's actually like right next door in Manhattan, Kansas, but it's close.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's a first step for me. Take the flight until Kansas, and then we will see. And no, thank you, Diane, and thank you, Fanny, who left also, for helping us every month, for this WAC Morning. It was super exciting. For everybody, have a great day and good morning.
Happy. Good morning. Really happy. Good morning. To be with you. Happy. Really happy. To be with you.